Okay.
So today, dear readers, on behalf of the Tribune newspaper, I'm introducing a beautiful book by the well-known author, poet, and travelogue writer Vikram Seth, who actually needs no introduction. This is a very, very um, new kind of book, I should say. He has translated one of the most beloved invocations to Lord Hanuman, Sri Hanuman Chalisa, into English and in verse, keeping so far as possible intact the rhythm and the sonorous quality of the original. Uh, when I read the book, I was quite enchanted by the English part, though I'm not known to be very friendly to English translations. Most of them leave me wanting for more. But this is one of those rare translations which really catches the spirit of Tulsidas and his dialogue, this very personal dialogue with Hanuman. Uh, Hanuman to Tulsidas was like a best friend. Ram was a lord, you can't meet him, look him in the eye, but you need an intermediary, and that was Hanuman. And what I think brought Hanuman close to Tulsi, I think Vikram can talk more about that, is the fact that they were both underrated, low key performers initially and very unsure of their past. They had immense past, but they needed a mentor who would unlock their uh, great past, unlock their loquaciousness, and make them really do things which were nothing short of miraculous. So, my first question, Vikram, is how did you chance to select this ode of all his other poems? There's Hanuman Bahuk, for example, which he again wrote for Hanuman. There is Vinay Patrika, which is again a very beautiful piece of poetry. How come Hanuman Chalisa? You have said in the introduction that it was your hero in your very well-known novel Suitable Boy Bhaskar who recited it. How much of Bhaskar is in you?
Uh, Two questions. And how much of Bhaskar is in me is a difficult question, because any character in a novel has to have something of you in them if you're going
Right,
to give them
right.
life. So whether it was Bhaskar, or whether it was Saida by the courtesan, or whether it was the mischievous man, or whether it was Cuddles the dog, to some extent, I have to put a little bit of myself in them, or get a little bit of something from them which comes into me. But the other question is, why did I choose the Hanuman Chalisa? I don't think I chose it. I really do think it was the other way around. It's all around us, and I, of course, know it. But I translated it as a labor of love, just because I thought, well,
That
let's
comes
see,
through. That comes through in the book.
yeah. I think I recited it once in a very raw form at the
Right.
Patna Literary Festival
Okay.
10 years ago. But after that, I just put it aside until my aunt Usha Mami, who lives below me, my widowed 90-year-old aunt, who recites the Hanuman Chalisa twice before she goes to bed. Now, I
Mhm.
didn't know that. It was just when I was discussing things with her about the Hanuman Chalisa that she said that that's what she does. Very interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
But why twice? Well, also, she says that the final doha, Pavantana, etc., has to be read twice.
Read twice. It's something called Sput part. Sput means a dona, you know.
Acha, right, right, exactly.
So Sput part means offering the part in a special dona of your own making. So it's a very personal invocation and a personal greetings to the Lord that you have. So
Yeah,
this and Durga Sapshati also has similar Sput part, which you
I
seal
see.
your gift with, so to
Right.
speak.
She said, "Darling, you've written this, done this translation. Let me see it." So I showed it to her, and then she said, "I think it's very selfish. You should share it with other people." My feeling was, look, translators always fall short, and you know, it's absurd to put out a translation when there is an original. But then I thought to myself, actually, I have been a great beneficiary of translation. I would never have written my first novel, The Golden Gate, if I hadn't read a wonderful translation of Pushkin's Eugene Onegin. So
Right.
even if it falls short, and it's bound to, it'll give you something of the taste of the original. And for those people who can't read Hindi, it's it'll be worthwhile. So really, as it chose me, and then I had to be slightly pushed into putting it into the world.
What a wonderful cover you've made for it.
Thank you.
The Nagri sits so well in gold letters against the red.
I
It's
agree
beautiful.
with you. In fact, what is really interesting is that this bit over here. I don't write it in the standard Devanagari
Right,
calligraphy. I use it like a Chinese style where you're lifting the brush to go down
right.
onto the neat stroke, so that you can tell what the stroke order is, and then when you get to the end of Hanuman, the ch just picks it up. It gave me a lot of pleasure to do that somehow.
Yes, I'm sure you did. Yeah. It's a very beautiful book to look at even. No, it's
And
wonderful to have by your bedside. This is a book you want to dip into it. Right. My next question is hooked to this first one, which
I'm
is, you know, there are scores of minor intermediaries a good translator uses to reach out to a language that he or she is proficient in. Uh, he pulls out an intermediary who helps him link creatively. Just
Mhm.
in Hindi, they have a word for it, jod rag. There
Acha.
is a set of notes that
Mhm.
is common to two different rags, and you use that as a bridge, and then you go from one to another back and
If,
forth, and
if you're
then it
having
becomes
a rag mala, or if you have a rag like Lalit Bhattiyar or something, then you
exactly.
use a Komal
No,
Rishabh
Jaipur
to.
Atharoli people do it all the time. So is was writing this somewhat like that? And what were the minor or major intermediaries that you used knowingly or unknowingly?
Well, I suppose the only effective intermediary for me was the fact that dactylic and trochaic rhythms, though not very common in English, do exist. By dactylic, I mean ta ta ta, and by trochaic, I mean ta ta. Now, of course, in most of English poetry, you don't have that. You have to be or not to be. It's a rising rhythm, ta
Right,
tum,
right.
and Hanuman Chalisa, of course, is not like that at all. Exactly.
No, it's da din din da din din da din din da din din da.
Four by four, teen tal effect is
Right.
working in the Hanuman Chalisa, though it's more likely actually to be Keherwa that you
16 and
manipulate
24. Doha is
Kohan and Chopai. Um, so I managed to elide the rhythm of sort of uh, Jai 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 Hanuman Gosai to Hail 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 Hanuman Great Teacher. To try to
right,
fit it in.
right. So
Not
it's
exactly.
interesting that the rhythm should speak to you and
It
bring to
does.
mind words,
Yeah.
parallel sounding words. Now that's
Yeah.
something really interesting about because when you read it, you can also feel it. Like the 23rd one. I think I flagged it also. The 23rd one. आप उन्हें तेज समारो आपे तीनों
Okay.
लोग
वो
हाँकते
कहाँ
कांपे.
का है, कहाँ पे है?
Yeah,
That's right. That's
that's
right.
uh,
No, no.
that's
Yeah.
that's come out so well in English, um,
लेकिन वो
because
नेजलाइजेशन नहीं मिल पाई मुझे. I couldn't get that हाँकते हैं कहाँ, तीनों लोग हाँकते हैं. That lovely, but that
that's
sorry.
because
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
in the West people don't give honk.
कर
In India, जोर से
हाँकते हैं.
honk लगाए.
कभी
You
कभी तो बिहारी लोग 1-2 फुट की दूरी पे भी हाँक लगाते हैं,
honk
जैसे कि
लगाते हैं ना.
जब वो
So
गुफ्तगू. हाँ, खैर.
in music also they say कि पुकार, उनकी
पुकार
पुकार.
एब्सोल्युटली, और अचानक. और
So
या
it's a sport. It's a kind of a
दैट्स राइट.
burst of sound, and this book has very endearingly captured mostly, except
या
of course the Talavya and the Dantavya thing, which
नॉट
was
पॉसिबल. हाँ, वो ट
anyway.
ट ट संकट कटे मिटे. You can't get that sort of thing.
कट कट
I
कट
love
कट वाला जो है,
that
but
वाला.
still
खैर. A
So,
Khan and
I
a
mean,
single
it,
alliteration.
it does get through. It does get through to lay
कुछ
readers like
तो
me.
मतलब अगर 10% भी किसी न किसी तरह निकल आए तो that's a lot for me.
Right, right. What image did you get while you were working on it of
Hmm.
the creator of these verses, Tulsidas? What
Yeah.
what did you feel about him?
You know, Tulsidas is a very vague figure. In fact, actually, even the Hanuman Chalisa, although it says Tulsidas Sadahari Chehra Ki Jana, although his name comes at the end, it's not entirely clear. Oh, for a long time, it wasn't in his collected works.
No.
And so
In fact, the
I,
first printed copies belong to something like 1918. Before that,
before
it
that,
was not available in print.
yeah.
So,
So it's a very tricky business. This I don't think of Tulsidas himself. I mean, Tulsidas has also become slightly mythic. You look at his birth dates and his death dates. Sometimes you find he appears to have lived 120 years, which makes no sense. But for me, I see him mainly as the author of the Ramcharitmanas. I know you've mentioned other great works of his, but this is the work that is sort of is such a
that's an
large
epic.
part of our culture. Exactly. Now, all throughout North India, the Ram Leelas, everything is based on that. People, when they die, they want the Sundarkand to be recited to them, and so on. With the Hanuman Chalisa, I didn't have an image of Tulsidas so much as a Hanuman, and the natural world. Now, whether
Two
it is
words you've used, two words, magical and joyful.
exactly, and I also about the poetry, I say incantatory and mesmeric.
It is.
But
It is.
imagine it's that lovely feeling. It's not. I mean, even when he's doing a bit of Asur Sahare, or even if he's burning Lanka, somehow you just get the sense of his jumping around doing these lovely
Right,
things.
right.
And as you said, Ram is rather a pious
A
sort of
distant figure.
and sometimes not even very sympathetic in certain regard. But
Mm.
Hanuman, you can't not like him.
Exactly. Because one thing that comes again and again in early poetry of
Hmm.
Tulsidas, including
Yes,
Vinay Patrika, is
mentioned earlier.
his feeling that he was a cast out, that he was lonely.
Yeah,
Buddhihin bal janike harahu kales vikar.
yeah,
That
right.
is one. The other thing is that he feels that his mind is riddled with many worldly passions, including sex, and he wants to be unsexed in a very Shakespearean way to be able to create the way that he did. And he says, "विधि ही न लिखी कछु भाल भलाई." मेरे कपाल में कुछ भी अच्छी बात लिखी ही नहीं
Yes,
भगवान ने. So in Hanuman, he discovers somebody who was similarly perhaps handicapped, but rose when Jamban told him, "Suno tum sab layak, ka chup
yes,
साधी रहे हूँ बलवाना." You
yes.
know, I think probably that was his intermediary moment
ये
when
तो था
he.
पहले से भी रीछ और वानर का संबंध एक तरह से.
Hmm, 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 hmm.
Um, but yes, I think that may well be so because in more than just in Buddhihinatan Janaki, in other places also, you see that kind of hesitancy. He sees him as a teacher in a way as well, as an intercessor,
Right,
as an intermediary, as a worker of miracles, as all this
right,
sort of thing.
right. प्रभु
Yeah.
मुद्रिका मेल मनमाही मुखमाही
Jaladi lang
नदी
gaye.
नाम जय अचरज नाही.
Nice. That's the loveliest part.
You
Durgam,
know,
my favorite one. Durgam kaaj jagat ke jete, sugama anugrah tumhare tete.
it,
After
it,
having stated, एक तो सूरज को खा गए और एक तो प्रभु मुद्रिका लेके
हाँ,
छलांग
माने
मार के वहां.
Ram himself had to have a bridge made to cross the seas, but
That's
he
right.
has such utter faith that he just put the ring in his mouth and
That's
leapt across.
right.
That always seemed to me to be a beautiful miracle that he is associating. So, in a
And the other
way,
one, वो जो था जो लाए
right.
सजीवन लखन जी आए. हाँ.
Right. So the more you read into these verses
Hmm.
and you read the English and the Hindi side by side, the
Yeah.
more kind of possibilities emerge. Like in singing a Jod Rag, you begin to see the raga in a very different perspective, and all of a sudden many
True.
things come to mind. For example, the very first one, Guru Charana Raj Mukul
Road
Sudhar.
Raja. हाँ,
The
that's right.
mind is dirty and
Like a
opaque.
mirror, उनके धूल
The
से हम उसे साफ
पैर
कर
की
सकते
धूल से अपने मन का वो किया. So this there's a continuous engagement with cleansing the
हैं.
mind.
Saroj, before let me interrupt, because it's very appropriate that Saroj should be next to Mrinal.
Yes, yes.
अच्छा, ठीक है चलो. So sorry,
Achha.
this is very relevant.
Not at all. The other thing that I find interesting is that Hanuman, he also finds somebody who was full of anxieties before he met Ram, and all his anxieties were gone. Rama Katha Sundar Kar Tari Sanshay Vihag Udavan Hari. And every creative writer
Yeah,
is a bundle of anxieties.
indeed. It,
So maybe Tulsidas found a good kind of doctor
I'm
for.
sure that's true, and I think it's quite apart from writers. I think many other people feel about Hanumanji, and actually to to some extent Ganeshji as well. That is, they may feel. So, should I stop
Yes,
here? Sure. That the gods beyond the natural world, the anthropomorphic gods, are rather too grand, and they want someone who's a friend. So they sometimes treat um, Hanuman or Ganesh, who come partly from the natural world, let's say,
it
as
was.
someone who is more accessible to them, less daunting.
It's
And
interesting you should say that because in some scriptures they also claim that Hanuman has a linkage with Shiva. He's blessed
yes,
by Shiva.
yeah.
And
Well, this is Shankar,
Ganesh,
Shankara Suvan Kesari Nandan. So Shankara Suvan
Shankar Suvan.
implies it. Yeah,
So his paternity is,
yeah.
kind of open ended,
एक तो
like
केसरी एक
Tulsidas's
तो
own.
केसरी नंदन, एक तो पवन तनय, इसलिए तो भीम, he is also half brother of Bhim. So it is all exactly. And Tulsidas is also, you say, seen as a bit of an outcast, as you say, or not an
Right.
outcast, someone looking in on the
The
world.
kind of, he's a hybrid.
Yeah.
In a way, he's, in the chain, he's
Mm.
somewhere between a Kashi Pandit and a native Yaksha, you know.
Nicely put.
Because before, of course, this whole Vaishnav dharma came to Kashi, it was all Shiv, it was all Shiva,
Even now, it's
you know.
basically
And
Shiv.
then Ramanand, 14th century Ramanand, Bhakti Upaji Dravidaya Lai Ramanand. So he brought the Bhakti to the ghats of Banaras. So Hanuman probably originally was a Yaksha figure, could be, because Yakshas are come through literature. I've been reading bits and pieces of medieval literature I can lay my
Yeah,
hands on. And I find that the Yakshas are, as you said, much friendlier, warmer, more trusting in a
that's
way. And people you can reach out and touch and, hail fellow,
quite
well
right.
met kind. They are
That's
good, basically good time jollies. But
absolutely. They have they have a somewhat divine attribute, but they're not like gods.
But the Sanatani gods are, like our great grandfathers and our grand
Yeah.
uncles,
Mhm.
very straight laced, jane uthi hai ki nahi, chita
ऐसे
dala ki
भीख
nahi.
का पितामह की तरह वैसे जरा
So, so,
गंभीर
so, 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 even as children, we used to warm up to Hanuman much more. After our annual visits to the Ramlila, the most sought
the
after character
moment
was
only. Yeah,
Hanuman.
and- yeah.
Everybody tried to be a Hanuman, stick a tail, and then hop around. And even while watching Ram Leela, there's something very joyful, as you've said, magical and joyful about Hanuman. So this is a wonderful recapturing of all these elements of the Hanuman figure, which
Thank you.
brings me to my last question:
Sure.
Is as Kumbhandas, a medieval saint, had said, Santan kaha sikri so kam, ate jaat panahiya tooti, bisari gayo hari naam. So Tulsidas had himself substantially, kind of distanced himself from Dilli Darbar. He was like
I-
Kumbhandas.
He had, He had, I didn't hear you clearly, had substantially separated himself from what?
from the Delhi Darbar of
Oh, the
Akbar.
Delhi Darbar, of course. In fact, that famous
Though, of
Akbar.
course, there are folklores about him being captured by Akbar and then Hanuman
Yeah,
coming and rescuing him. And
mm,
that's all, I think,
yeah.
patent
I
nonsense, or
agree. Well, not.
stories that came up later. But
Yeah.
the thing is that Tulsidas had rigidly kept himself away, not only from Delhi Darbar, also from the religious churnings that were happening all around him. He does not talk about Islam or Islamic invaders at all in any of his poetry.
Yeah.
And yet, the only place he says is Dhut kaho, Avdhut kaho, Julha kaho, Rajput kaho, Julha kaho, so मांगी के खैबो मसीत में सोइबो, मैं मांग के खा लूंगा, मस्जिद में जाके सो जाऊंगा, मुझे
Mm.
धूत कहो, अवधूत कहो, जुल्हा कहो, जो कहते हो कहो, मैं किसी की जात नहीं बिगाड़ रहा हूँ. So in a way he was closer to Kabir
Yeah,
and Kutan
absolutely.
Das, um,
Yeah.
but he was also a Ram Bhakt.
काबा कैलाश वगैरह दोनों को. हाँ.
Right. So you took 10 years to get this book published. Um, why now? And how did you manage to keep it totally free of any cant or anything? I read your preface very carefully, any association with politics. But fact remains that Hanuman Chalisa has been politicized and weaponized in the last 5-6 years very badly. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it wasn't that I tried to keep it depoliticized or sort of not anti any religion. Tulsidas himself does. The text doesn't have
Exactly.
anything sort of petty about it,
Right.
or self-aggrandizing about it. And Hanuman is in the service of someone. He's not there saying that I have a 54-inch chest or whatever it is. He is actually a devotee.
So
And the use of this thing, especially in the last few years, is clearly a question of
with
political.
hordes of people going and giving dharnas and reciting Hanuman Chalisa only to hurt people or to incite, passions. How do you react to that? How do you react to that kind of?
I dislike it very badly. I think it is against the spirit, the better spirit of Hinduism. I
Right.
think that, as I said, in the lottery of life, if we happen to be born in one religion, it gives us absolutely no right to attack or demean other religions. And as Indians, we have Hindus, Muslims, whatever we are, even or atheists, whatever that is, should not in any sense reduce our rights or our sense of patriotism or our pride in our culture. We have a wonderful culture which has Judeo-Christianity in it, which has Islam in it, which has Hinduism in it. We don't have the Chinese, Japanese culture, but
Right.
we are one of those lucky countries in the world which has all this. To
Right.
exclude something is to impoverish yourself and to weaken yourself, and besides to be cruel and inhumane to your fellow citizens. So I was pushed to publish it because I thought, oh my God, they'll think I've gone over to sort of this crazy style and I want to be an angry Hanuman. So when my
That
publisher
is
said,
terrible.
I wanted to publish it actually on Hanuman Jayanti, but then I thought, oh my God, the elections are coming up. It'll get
Right.
sucked into that. उस बहस में पड़
Get
जाएगा
it.
चुनाव. ये
So,
उलझ जाएगा एक तरह से, और जो उलझना चाहिए उसे सुलझना चाहिए, दुर्गम
right.
काज सुगम करना चाहिए. तो I
Right.
said I'll do it after the elections, and if Modi had come in with 400 votes, or if the other INDIA had formed a coalition, this book would have been published on my birthday anyway. And the introduction I wrote in November, so it has nothing to do with the result of the election. Everything in this book, every word came long before.
Oh,
I want to keep it out of all this stuff.
it is a gem of a book, and I'm so glad that you kept it all out of that. As Kabir said, "Mera tera manwa ek kaise hoi re." मैं कहता सुलझावन हारी तू राखे उलझाई रे. मैं
Exactly.
सुलझाने की बात करता हूँ, तुम उलझा देते हो.
और
You've
हमारे
done
देश
your
में बहुत कुछ उलझ गया है, अब सुलझाने का टाइम आ गया है.
उलझाने का टाइम आ गया है. Thank you so much, Vikram, for
Thank you, Mrinal.
this
Thank you very
interview.
much.
It was delight to talk to you, and all the best for your future ventures. And I do hope you'll give us more gems like that soon. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye, Mrinal.
Bye.
So, anything more from the Mufassal? अच्छा, रुक गया, ठीक है.
So, so okay, it was great meeting you. इसी बहाने आपसे मुलाकात हो गई.
हिंदी और ज़रा अजीब-सा एक बहाना है, लेकिन अच्छा हुआ एक तरह से.
अच्छा
और
हुआ.
असल
Yes.
में my mother was alive, she liked your writing very much.
I
And
loved your mother. I really loved your mother, and she was one of the big stars. I still have all her books with me, and also your father. Uh,
Papa was a wonderful
your
man.
parents, your parents were class by themselves, and
I chose them very well.
yes, yes, yes. I think so. I think Hanuman chose them for you, maybe with a sense
Exactly.
of mischief.
जी,
Let unto this couple of Vikram Seth be born. So, anyway, lovely to
wonderful.
meet you, and thank you
Bye,
so
Birla.
much once again.
Thank you.